black supremacy. And with this particular video, I want to deal with how the back to nature movement contradicts human intelligence. I got to go in on this. Now, the whole back to nature movement says that we need to get back in tune with nature. Get back into our animalistic self. Basically, that's what it's saying. That is the ultimate way to live. That is the most healthiest and the most divine way to live in tune with God. And anything other than living in accordance with nature is against God and is unrighteous and is wrong. Now, it's something that we got to look at here. Not so much what they're saying when they say that, but we got to look at where that information is coming from, where that knowledge is coming from. And what I would like to add in there is human intelligence is unnatural. Now, all of the inventions and how society has become very complex and very sophisticated comes from the advent of human intelligence. The difference between a human being and an animal is our intellect, our ability to think and reason, thus invent, change, shape, and impact our reality. So human intelligence is where all this stuff comes from that the back to nature people say they're against. The vehicles, the cars, the electricity, the lights, all of it comes from human intelligence. So to really go back into nature would have to be devoid of human intellect. You'd have to get rid of human intellect. But you can't intellectualize the most perfect divine human intellect. You can't intellectualize and define human intellect. What is the true human intellect? What is the natural true intellect of a human being? And use the same intelligence or the same human intellect that everybody else is using in society in Babylon. You're using the same intelligence that they're using to sign us up going back to nature. Either you accept human intelligence as something divine, as something good, or you throw out human intelligence. You can't have them both. But when you get into debate with people who are pro-modernization, who accept certain sophistications and certain benefits and comforts and conveniences that society offers, when you run into them and they make an intellectual argument to you, and then you come back and you use human intellect to argue against them, who is to determine which one of those is the real intellect? Who's operating out of the real human intellect, out of the natural human intellect? Can the person with the real natural human intellect stand up? The truth is that human intellect has no boundaries. It has no parameters. It cannot be put in a box, just like nature cannot be put in a box. So human intellect is why you decided to go back into nature. And human intellect is the reason that people decided to come out of nature. That's the reality. If you embrace human intellect, you embrace all the inventions of mankind. That they arose out of the nature of the evolution of the human being. That as the human being evolved, he manifested intellect, and society, the way we see it, came out of man's intellect. You cannot intellectualize nature. Nothing in animal, no animal in nature sits around and intellectualizes. sit around and thinks and reasons. They just carry out their process. They do what they do. They are not imaginative. They do not believe in an afterlife. They do not have spirituality and religion. They do not intellectualize. Only humans do. I'm making a point here. Human intelligence is what sets us apart from nature. And if you want to really go back into nature and be one with nature and be truly an animal in nature, you have to get rid of your intellect. You would have to. Because otherwise, what you're calling nature is just another, what you're calling a natural experience is just another one of man's intellectual constructs. That is a multiple choice within the matrix of man's mind as well. Because we have our ideals and our idealism about what being in nature is and what being in nature means, as man has defined everything. Man has defined everything, and animal defines nothing. Man lives within his own definitions that he make up. He defines, labels, classifies, and then he makes distinctions. Then he makes choices based upon those distinctions. Animals don't do that. Human intellect is a natural phenomenon. Period. Or it's not. But the true people that really want to go into nature are not intellectualizing. Nature is silent. Nature is quiet. Nature doesn't think, reason, nor imagine, argue, nor convince, persuade. I have to speak on this. So we're not going back to nature. A lot of people that say they're going back to nature is going back to their own intellectual construct. They're going back to their own perception and their own mindset. They say going back to nature, and then they connect nature to God. And monkeys don't have no religion. Monkeys don't believe in God or afterlife or any of that. They don't believe in any of that. There's no God. It's in nature. That's man-made God. God is a construct of man's mind, of man's imagination. Man created God in his mind. And man is the God that created God. And man's intelligence at the first manifestation of man's intelligence, God was born at that point, at that moment. God is synonymous with man's level of intelligence to perceive the totality of his existence and to live in accordance with what he perceives to be the meaning, purpose, and the totality of his existence. That's what God is. Man wants to live in accordance with his own mind, with his own precepts, with his own principles, with his own perceptions. That's when God came into play. So God lives in man's intellect. No monkey, bird, snake, tree, none of that has a God or is trying to live in tune with God. Everything in nature just be. It just be, that's it. It is what it is. So we take our intellect back into nature and we believe that we are one with nature. We just one with our own intellect. So we're no different from people who are building buildings and building nuclear bombs and doing chemtrails and putting up satellites. We're no different from them. Going according to our own intellect. But what separates us that are going back into nature based on our own intellect and building satellites based on our intellects and animals is intellect itself. Now, my personal perspective is that man's intelligence can lead him to a supernatural level of consciousness. Man is intelligent above animals, but if he wants to reach a supernatural level of consciousness, then man must perfect his consciousness and free himself from the pre-programmed thoughts and ideas that have become society, that has become humanity, that has become the institutions, that has become the construct that we call the matrix. Once we free ourselves from that construct, from that program, then we will reach an advanced level of intelligence. We will reach a supernatural level of intelligence. We will become supernatural beings again. What we call getting back in tune with nature is our own intellectualization, and sometimes somebody sold that idea to us as well as the idea that they gave to us what nature is, how nature operates. All this shit is nature. Nature lets all of this shit happen. All this shit exists within nature. The man is putting up satellite, is oxygen going through his body that's allowing him to do that. Nature allows all this shit to happen. Everything you see in the material world is composed of nature. And when nature no longer supports it, it will no longer exist. So everything around you is natural. Everything. Everything is nature. Everything exists within nature. We cannot escape nature because we create our own definition and our own construct of what is natural, what is nature. That's man made that up, like he made up everything else, like he made up religion. Nature is everything around you. You cannot escape nature. When you escape nature, you will have died. But when you reach a supernatural intelligence, a supernatural state of consciousness, you can do some things with nature that has yet to be seen. You can take nature to a level that many have not even conceptualized as possible. And that's really where you want to get to. You don't want to go back to anything. That's a regression. You want to go forward. And to go forward, to be able to go to a supernatural level where you're not a slave to nature and you're not limited to man's constructs either, man's institutions either. Then you've reached a supernatural level. Human intelligence has created and crafted all of this shit. Human intelligence is marketed all this shit. Human intelligence has created your imagination, your perspective, your mind. All human intelligence. I don't think it originally came from human intelligence, but that's a whole nother video. This is King Noble Black Supremacy. Join my website, www.kingnobleuncensored.com. Donate, don't hate.